I just had one random interaction, like I was just driving around South Charlotte and was stopped at a stoplight, and this family of four, like two kids in the back and probably in their mid-30s, just rolled down their window and were like waving at me like, "Hey, I saw you in the Netflix show." So super weird, but appreciate it. But yeah, I guess that's the only impact I've had with it. I mean, it's all different approach or different sports, but like similar approach of like, you can just tell who just has that feel and that ability to continue to put the work in and perfect it.
How much of being a super athlete and being a guy who can really interact with the fan base, where's that balance?
Yeah, I think it's like ever changing, but yeah, I just try. I think at the racetrack, I'm probably a lot more quiet than I am around my friends and family. But that's intentional because it's just I'm focused and I just want to get my job done and do the best I can. So I feel like that's common in every sport, is just trying to have that kind of in the arena vibe, you know, whatever motivates you, whatever gets you in that zone that you can perform. And so, yeah, maybe that's hard for people to really like understand me because of that, but that's just the nature of how I do it. It's all tactical. Like there's always a reason for every move. So there's never like a decision I feel like that I make that I'm like, I'm not sure what to do here. Like it's just kind of whatever the situation calls for. And I think the racing in the next gen car is a little bit more dynamic and aggressive than it used to be. The cars, the bodies are a lot stiffer and tougher. So you can push on restarts. You can side draft more aggressively. I mean, there seems like there's a lot more contact when people are side drafting because it's more incidental. It's not actually, you know, caving in the left side door into the tire and everything. So I just feel like that stuff has kind of come with the nature of the car.
Did he have to sell you on it?
Him? Yeah, a little bit. I think my I think when we talked, it was more, A, do you think I can do it? And then B, you know, just like, what is it like? You know, what is Hendrick Motorsports like? Because I had no idea. You know, I have no idea what it's really like inside the walls. So that was what he probably sold me on, is what the culture was like.
And Hendrick is obviously buttoned up a little bit more than some other organizations. I think that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
Was that an adjustment for you, from college motorsports?
Yeah, probably a little bit. I think I try to swing the culture the other way on that. Not the culture. The culture is amazing. I try to swing the buttoned up part the other way a little bit, I think. But the culture is great. It's that doesn't need any work. So I just try to be a little bit more laid back and bring a truck series side of things into the Cup world once in a while.
Well, Jeff Gordon, I think, told for you being in the office, was it December 26th, right?
Yeah, the day after.
Would you have been at the KBM office on December 26th? Like does that, or?
For sure.
So it didn't matter where you were.
Yeah, 100%.
Why do you think those trucks are so fast, Bob? It's like working.
Yeah, I think it happened the year before, you know, with Eric Jones, and then William was the second one, and then it happened every year after that. So, but William was the second one of those. Definitely more wins than we had with Eric. But Eric, we won a championship. So I kind of took it as pride that our team was good enough to move the driver on to the next series and then be ready to succeed. You see a lot of guys and drivers, they move on to the next series after successful runs and they don't succeed. And I think most of the guys that ran through KBM, whether I was a small part of it or not, most of them, they're in Cup now, and most of them are pretty successful at what they do. So what we're talking about, meetings, preparation, how they drive, all the things, we all had a part of that. So that was a big thing for me. And I put that with my wife with being a high school teacher, so she moves kids on to go to college and be successful, and I always tried to learn a little bit from her on that, so I'll throw a shout out to her.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't spoke yet. I reached out to him, but I'm sure we'll get connected later this week. But yeah, nothing really changes for me. My perspective, we just came together in a spot there. He was coming down the track to try to cover my run, and I was just making the corner exit like I anticipated him being where he would be on the exit. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but just it's racing on the last lap, and I just gonna kind of do that 10 out of 10 times, probably stay in that spot.
And if he was in the position you were in, you would expect him to do the same?
I would, yeah. I mean, I think I think probably the timing of the momentum that I had was probably like maybe a little bit different than what he thought or something. I haven't talked to him, so once we talk, we'll discuss it and go from there.
You said in Nashville that one of the things you felt like you needed to work on was being more aggressive in certain situations. Is what happened at the end of Sunday's race an example of that?
No, I mean, I've been aggressive when it comes to being in contention, so I don't feel like I'm trying to be any more aggressive, no.
When you were looking, when Chad let you know that he was leaving his crew chief towards the end of 2020, did you immediately know? I know it's probably easy to say when he's sitting here next to you, but did you know right away that this was your guy, or was there other people too that were on the list, and kind of walking through that process?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anyone else on the list, so I just didn't know that I would have the choice or the opinion. You know, I thought that they would kind of make that decision for me, which is commonplace in a lot of places. But yeah, I mean, I had an idea of who I wanted, and they actually knew that somehow before.
They did?
Yeah, they knew that before I said anything. I mean, Chad and I had conversations about bringing Rudy on as an engineer before that, so I think it probably sparked, just some of those conversations a few years before that.
When you decided to kind of speak up and say, hey, this is what I want to do, were you scared? What kind of compelled you to that? You're still a young driver at that point. You've got one victory to your name, but like, you're still kind of proving yourself. So
Yeah.
some guys in that situation may have been a little bit reluctant to do that.
Just to
What compelled? Like, what was the tipping point of saying, hey, I need to. This is what I want to do. I don't want to let that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just getting comfortable within Hendrick, but I feel like for me, if I wanted my career to go well, I'm gonna be a part of those decisions as best I can. I'm not gonna step on toes, but I want to make sure that I'm gonna have the best chance to run well. So I felt like if Rudy was willing to, go to the Cup Series and have more time away from his family and all those things, then I knew we could work well together. And just that chemistry. No matter what race car you're driving, if you can be on the same page, it's going to go fast.
So I know there's some guys who they've done it before. They've tried to get the band back together, bring a crew chief that they won a championship with, or found success with in the past. But they've had varying degrees of success in Cup. But you guys are obviously a different story. You kicked down the door the last 2 seasons. What's kind of been the biggest factor in being able to have that so much success together?
Mm-hmm. I think we just are like always evolving, honestly. I mean, I feel like we just take whatever the challenge is and we get over the fact that it might be uncomfortable and might be difficult to work through, like the next gen car, getting that. I know, like I was just thinking today how many times in the first year we'd go out for practice and be terrified of what was going to happen, and we just worked through that discomfort together and really just tried to figure out what was going to work. And I feel like all of our problems, we typically we go through a period of discomfort, we work on it, and then we see the results. So that's just the way it's been for us.
Rudy, you're one of the unique situations in being not in the Cup Series and moving up to the Cup Series. And obviously, we've seen how the vehicles are so much different and how things have evolved. A lot of times when somebody does something, it's easy to follow suit. But a lot of times teams still stay within their own house. The path that you went, how much more would have been more challenging now than when you came up with the car? Is that path closing for people like you, or is there still that opportunity for somebody who can be the crew chief? Because I think I recall you talking about just the challenges and the adjustment.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm in a great situation. I'm at Hendrick Motorsports. I mean, there's this great team underneath me. I've got great engineers and great cars, great speed, great engines, great driver. So sometimes you just need somebody to help make things easier, and so if I could do that and try to be the leader of the group to kind of connect some of those dots, that's all I think I've really done probably, is just try to simplify things and put things together. I don't know that I've brought any amazing secrets or anything different, so I don't know that needs to happen. You know, you're really looking for, if you have a good team with a good car and a good driver, you're looking for somebody to put all those pieces together to lead the team. And so thankfully I've been able to do that. And I think other people, if you're a good leader and you get along with people and you know how to get trust with your driver and you've got good cars, there's a good chance you're going to be successful.
Also, I'm curious, in terms of when you're on the box, and every crew chief has kind of a different style, and some seem like they're reading SMT a lot more closely, or they're giving certain information. How do you do it? How much are you looking at, or are you looking at certain other things and letting engineers or the command center kind of feed you certain things to tell him or not to tell him?
Yeah, I try to use all of our people. So myself and Brandon McSwain, my lead engineer, he does an amazing job. We are cohesive on the box together. But I'm watching every single lap and every steering trace, and I can see the first time he starts to get loose or tight, and see all those things. The difference in me is I try to only give William information when I know it can be helpful. I know that I can't drive it, and usually if the car is responding a certain way that I can't, just because I see it doesn't mean he would fix it if he could. So I try to give him some tips, maybe once a race, and sometimes not even that much, but try to stay off of him and let him know, what's going on. So I'm watching intently, but it just kind of, so I can plan before he talks, I kind of know what's going on.
When William approached you, was it William that first approached you on the Hendrick side, or who came to you first?
Chad?
Chad?
Yeah.
Well, immediately were you interested, or did you kind of be sold on this?
It's super tough for me of being in the truck series for so long and having a great job, and a great team, and then having my 4 kids. At that point, my oldest son was getting ready to be a senior, so just a lot going on. My wife works still, so it's that was the biggest and toughest thing, was to make sure it was right for my family. So it was my dream to be able to run well in Cup. I love William and I want to help him, and I want to do good things with him, but I also I can't tear my family apart with it. So I'm thankful for them for letting me to be able to do this. So that's the biggest thing, is they're allowing me to be able to do this, and it's making us do great things.
Did he have to sell you on it?
Him? A little bit. I think I think when we talked, it was more, do you think I can do it? And then B, just like, what is it like? What is Hendrick Motorsports like? Because I had no idea. I have no idea what it's really like inside the walls. So that was what he probably sold me on, is what the culture was like.
And Hendrick is obviously buttoned up a little bit more than some other organizations, I think that's fair to say.
Mhm.
Was that an adjustment for you, from college motorsports?
Yeah, probably a little bit. I think I try to swing the culture the other way on that. Not the culture. The culture is amazing. I try to swing the buttoned up part the other way a little bit, I think. But the culture is great. That doesn't need any work. So I just try to be a little bit more laid back and bring a truck series side of things into the Cup world once in a while.
Well, Jeff Gordon, I think, told story of you being in the office, was it December 26th, right?
Yeah, the day
So
after.
Would you have been at the KBM office on December 26th? Like does that, or?
For sure.
So it didn't matter where you were.
Yeah, 100%.
Why do you think those trucks are so fast, Bob? Is that working?
No, there's plenty of things. I wanted to ask you, William, too, a lot of talk about tires and what NASCAR should do, and kind of the various types. Do you have a preference of what should be tried, or anything that you're looking for out of them?
Yeah, I don't. I just caution. I think that the Bristol situation was really interesting and unique because the track didn't lay any rubber. So I just don't know how realistic we can really recreate that. But it'd be nice to see some more tire wear for sure. I mean, I was disappointed at Martinsville in practice to see, especially us starting 18th. I was like, man, there's 0.3 of fall off here, so it's gonna be really hard. But I think just trying to get some more fall off. I mean, the mile and a halfs, when we went to the mile and a halfs for the first test, we would fall off like a second and a half in 25 laps, and that was awesome. I mean, we had everything that people want, right? Some spin outs, some comers and goers in the test, and then it seems like we've kind of lost that some as the car's gotten better.
Is there any way to get everybody talks about how much they liked North Wilkesboro kind of on the wet weather tires, Richmond on the wet weather tires, to get that
Yeah.
in a dry condition?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, the wet weather tire, like as soon as it sees dry track, like it just wears through right away. So and then you get super tight, or I'm sure some guys got loose, but it just does wear out. So for us, like in Richmond, I think we started not in a great spot, and then we were able to pass 4 or 5 guys at the end of the run. So that was pretty good.
Hey Rudy, right after you guys won COTA, you were pretty quick to point out that you really wanted to do something, be better and get a win at Richmond and or Martinsville, which you guys did. I just wondered, is there anything else like that, like those on your list for like this season that you'd really like to do better at?
Yeah, for sure. Our mile and a half stink right now. We haven't won one of those this year, so we need to put that on the list and go to work.
William, a lot of times when we go to super speedways, people think about a Hamlin or a Blaney or something like that for the favorites, but you've got 2 wins at Daytona, 2 wins at Atlanta. Do you think like your speedway racing has kind of entered that upper echelon and your confidence level at a speedway?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Ryan's really good there. Denny's really good. Those 2 guys do a really good job of just kind of positioning themselves throughout the entire race. But yeah, it just seems like for us, we just have to go with a good mindset, and then it seems like the rest kind of takes care of itself. You can't worry about the things you can't control. So the times I go there stressed out or worried about crashing, because of a point situation or whatever, it just doesn't work. So just trying to have the right mindset going there.
Rudy, when you build not only a car but a strategy going into Talladega Superspeedway, what are some of the things that you work on this week to know that you're buttoned up when you go down there this weekend?
Yeah, I think we probably have 2 or 3 plans we try to work up on what happens. So if you have caution-free stages, and you're going to have that green flag pit stop, which you're trying to position yourself for, then you're also trying to position yourself on whether you're the front, the back at the beginning of the stage, and that kind of changes how you run the stage. Nobody wants to talk about fuel savings, but that's all part of it. So depending on how you're starting the stage and if you're in the front or the back, makes a big part of that. And then and then you also have to, because the caution comes out in the wrong spot and you're last on track position, you don't get the fuel savings doesn't matter, right? So none of that matters. You're just last. So all those things play into it. There's always a give and a take. So if you just plan on running in the back and saving fuel, if you get a caution in the window, you're last and you're never going to pass anybody. So we kind of play all those out and try to come up with the best scenario and give him as many tactics and strategies to put ourselves in the best position to win each stage and win the race.
You talked about how you were happy in the truck series before you moved to Cup. When you have a successful run like you did with Byron in the truck series, mentally as a crew chief, what's that like when that guy moves on somewhere else?
Yeah, I think it happened the year before, with Eric Jones, and then William was the second one, and then it happened every year after that. So, but William was the second one of those. Definitely more wins than we had with Eric. But Eric, we won a championship. So I kind of took it as pride that our team was good enough to move the driver on to the next series and then be ready to succeed. You see a lot of guys and drivers, they move on to the next series after successful runs and they don't succeed. And I think most of the guys that ran through KBM, whether I was a small part of it or not, most of them they're in Cup now, and most of them are pretty successful at what they do. So what we're talking about, meetings, preparation, how they drive, all the things, we all had a part of that. So that was a big thing for me. And I put that with my wife with being a high school teacher, so she moves kids on to go to college and be successful, and I always tried to learn a little bit from her on that, so I'll throw a shout out to her.
This is for both of you. With the similarities to Bristol from Dover, is there any chance that we see similar tire wear there next week?
I mean, I hadn't really thought of it, but we did have a weird scenario there in practice last year where it was really cool, and then the tires weren't, responding the way we thought, and they were cording. So I think it was more kind of Dover to Bristol being like, oh, that makes sense why that happened. But in the race, it was fine. Track laid rubber and was good.
Yeah, it happens. If the sun doesn't come out and it's under 60, it can happen for sure.
When you go to a place like Dover, with there being so few tracks to compare it to, can you even look at notes from Bristol? Do you look at notes from last year at Dover? How do you prepare for that race?
Yeah, for us, for setup wise, it's got a lot of mile and a half type of loading. So you use some mile and a half information, and then you use Bristol because the concrete tires are similar, same left side tires, Bristol. So a lot of similarities between those two, and then it's its own animal. So you kind of the nice thing is a lot of times it's year after year, it's got a lot of the same setup. You can kind of put that in a box and look at it again.
Rudy,
Yeah.
you said you're selective about what you tell William on the radio. Where did Make It Live come from?
I stole that from Tony Hirschman. So Hirschman and I have been, he was the only spotter I had before Brandon Lyons in Cup here. So yeah, it was something that he had I think he came up with it before me, and then we just used it forever. So that's his. I did steal it, 100%.
But when you hear that, what does that tell you? And
Yeah.
does it give you confidence? What's your reaction when you hear that?
I mean, it typically just means the race is going really good. So it typically means we're in the lead and something's good, happening, or we're chasing down the leader or something, have a lot of pace on our side. So, I mean, it's an accurate statement, right? You just want to try to manage your run. So I think, it kind of is one of those cadence things that makes a lot of sense when you're in the lead or in a good spot, so you don't burn it down.
Can you, you talked about it and mentioned the discussion about aggressiveness earlier. Can you give me a sense of how you, I would say, progressed as a driver, and maybe it's partly confidence in the car and so forth, to where there are certain moves or examples, something that you've done even this year that maybe a couple of years ago that might not have been part of the play, but as the field is tightened and the times are tightened, that it's kind of forced you to do. We hear this word aggressive, but my definition of aggressive and your definition of aggressive are probably two different things.
Yeah. I mean, it's just for me, just confidence and just not being affected by what other people say about how you race or how you do things. I feel like I have a way that I race. I feel like I race really fair, and I feel that I just go with what my gut says, and I have a good race team behind me that supports me, and I just kind of listen to my inner confidence and heart on that stuff.
How is that? Like I said, I'm curious. What would be an example of something that you've done? Like I said, that maybe the general person views as a little bit more aggressive. Maybe you don't because this is your job, but it's something that you might not have done a couple of years ago, or it's something you've grown into as you developed it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all tactical. Like there's always a reason for every move. So there's never like a decision I feel like that I make that I'm like I'm not sure what to do here. Like it's just kind of whatever the situation calls for. And I think the racing in the next gen car is a little bit more dynamic and aggressive than it used to be. The bodies are a lot stiffer and tougher, so you can push on restarts, you can side draft more aggressively. I mean, there seems like there's a lot more contact when people are side drafting because it's more incidental. It's not actually caving in the left side door into the tire and everything. So I just feel like that stuff has kind of come with the nature of the car.
I mean, last week fit the first after the green flag stop. That's aggression. Like he didn't take his time. Here we go.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
how
remember.
I view it. Yeah, how you took the lead.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was just going fast.
On the last lap at Talladega, how do you decide what to do when you know that a wreck could happen at any time and end the race?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think you can really think about when the wreck's going to happen, but you can just think about if Brandon says that there's a wreck happening, the urgency goes up to try to get an inch or two on a guy. So I think it's just kind of listening to Brandon and what he's talking about, and he has a great vision, and he can watch what's going on, and then he sees out of the corner of his eye somebody's crashing, and he did that at Martinsville too. He's like, make sure you get to the line here because the guys behind you are crashing. So just things like that. He just does a good job, and I feel like I don't try to think too much of it, and I try not to worry about crashing either, coming to the checkered. But it's easy to think about those things, because racing there is so intense.
So when you're planning, if you're like second or third or fourth, you have to race with the assumption that you're going to the finish line, and not that
I
the race
do.
could end a half lap early.
Yeah, I do. Until something happens that, until something happens, there is a crash, and it's subjective of when the, is it not safe enough for us to get back to the line? Then, then you have to work with those circumstances. But until then, it's just, try to position yourself, because if you make a move in the wrong spot, you could finish 10th. Like, it's really easy to make a bad decision on the last lap and lose all your momentum.
Rudy, with Daytona, Atlanta, Talladega being so vastly different from each other, how does that impact your preparation, your setup, especially when you're just going straight into qualifying?
Yeah, I mean, our super speedway setups are kind of locked in a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of rules, especially for speedways. There's a lot of rules every week. There's even more rules for super speedways. So there is not a lot to do that we can do, honestly. So we try to change one or two small things. We were starting to talk about it yesterday, and we'll, as we're driving back, the 2 or 3 things we're going to change to try to take pushes better or whatever, So, but there's very, very minute things you can do. The car's got to go fast, and it's got to be on the ground for the most part to do that. The rules on the geometries are set. You kind of know what springs you need to run. So it's really about the strategy and then the fine details, which is the guys at the shop putting those details in the car.
And then, do you guys have a better sense after a couple track and track races about how the Fords and Toyotas can either take pushes or push you guys better?
The Fords have been the best at just drafting. I don't know what that is, but they've done a good job, and they have a lot of good drafting drivers and teams. So I don't know. I don't know in particular, like, to answer your question on who's better or not, but
Well, even a couple weeks we go to Kansas. I feel like that track's kind of gone from the forgotten mile and a half to like a favorite spot for both drivers and fans. Can you speak to how that's kind of evolved even just during your time in the Cup Series?
yeah, I feel like the racing, like the surface has obviously aged, and then I feel like we've had a lot of hot races there where it promotes a lot of sliding, around and fall off. So I just feel like it's one of those places that has fall off, and you start the race at, you're maybe a second slower than practice. So it's one of those places that just promotes a lot of off throttle time.
Can you give me a sense of, as you have moved up the ladder in terms of success in the series, I'm sure in one sense the process stays about the same as it would for any athlete, but just what it is like in trying to climb that hill and then to also be closer to the top, and what are the challenges, and what's, I guess I don't know if I have an appreciation of what you guys have to go and how hard those climbs are, and what the challenge is now as you reach a higher level.
Yeah, I think it's just like never ending. I think it just never, it never stops. I feel like as soon as you get to a new baseline, I guess you could call it, like where you feel like, man, we did a great job. Like, we won this race, we dominated or whatever. And then you go back to that same track and you can't run 8th. So it just, I looked at a stat, with, I think it was talking about Chase and his last, he's won at all different tracks. And that's pretty common now with a lot of people, because it's just so hard to go back to the same tracks and still have success. So
Why?
I just think the competition just sits there and says, okay, like, we weren't good enough this race. Let's change this. Let's tweak this. And a lot of times the team that wins is like, okay, we're really good here. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. And it's just the nature of this sport. It's very dynamic, and you saw that at Martinsville. Like, we started 18th and we kept working, and then we had a dominant car at the end. So it just, I don't know, it's just really a lot of parity and a lot of small details.
Does that fact make what 2311 has been able to do at Kansas the past couple of years even more impressive?
They've done a good job, and they, I guess, understand that track. They have a really good understanding of it. So, we'd love some secrets, but we've got a good Kansas thing going, so we just got to keep working.
Is the mood in the shop any different now that Chase has won? And kind of a little skid. Is there any? I know you all win every race, but the fact that another driver has won in your stable, does it change anything in the shop?
Yeah, I think those guys are a lot more optimistic as they should be with winning, and the mood's been really high. Like everyone has been running well, so we don't always look at wins and losses. It's more how are we running? Where's the speed? And we talked about that on the way over here. Like I feel like we're where we should be, or maybe a little better than we thought we would be.
Offbeat question. The movie Cars, I think you would have been about 8 years old when it came out. I'm assuming at that point you kind of were thinking about racing, or certainly had an interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
Did that movie make any impact on you, or was it as
Yeah.
8-year-old William Byron to see something that you liked? I'm just curious what do you
Yeah.
recall?
I mean, it's nostalgic. I think it's got like Rascal Flatts music, and it's like it's just a good movie. There's a few of those, but yeah, I guess so. I think I was already pretty interested in racing at that point, but it was a good movie.
Did you go to the premiere at Charlotte since you were here?
Not the first one, no. I think the third one.
Okay,
Yeah,
track.
but yeah, I think it was in Davidson.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good movie though.
With your 6 wins last year, 3 wins this year, and your visibility in the Netflix deal, have you noticed an increase in interactions with fans either on social media or in
Yeah.
person or at the track or even some of the behind the scenes stuff you may have privy to, like merch sales and stuff? Have you noticed any kind of
Yeah.
needle movement?
Yeah, I think the sport's up in general, but I just had one random interaction. Like I was just driving around South Charlotte and was stopped at a stoplight, and this family of 4, like 2 kids in the back and probably in their mid-30s, just rolled down their window and were like waving at me like, "Hey, I saw you in the Netflix show." So super weird, but appreciate it. But yeah, I guess that's the only impact I've had with it.
You're wearing your Hurricanes hat, so
Yeah.
you have a prediction for them for the playoffs?
They better beat the Islanders the first round and go from there. I don't know. They're doing really good. They made I've been to a few games. I'm pretty tight with Jordan Martinook, so I've been texting him a little bit, and I just hope they have a good playoffs and try to get up there for a few games.
As a fan of other sports like that, how do you reconcile out like who are superstars in those sports versus how you think they might perceive you looking back in the
Yeah.
opposite direction?
Yeah, I don't know. I never really thought of that, but I don't know. Like watching some of those guys in hockey or football, like you can just see the ones that have the attention to their craft, and they just have a really good vision of what's going on. So I'd say that's the thing you see.
You think that's something they think about like you might think about it, or is it just something that comes natural to an athlete to be the best you can be at any given?
Yeah, I mean it's all different approach or different sports, but like similar approach of like you can just tell who just has that feel and that ability to continue to put the work in and perfect it.
How much of being a super athlete and being a guy who can really interact with the fan base, where's that balance?
Yeah, I think it's like ever changing, but yeah, I just try. I think at the racetrack I'm probably a lot more quiet than I am around my friends and family. But that's intentional because it's just I'm focused and I just want to get my job done and do the best I can. So I feel like that's common in every sport, is just trying to have that kind of in the arena vibe, whatever motivates you, whatever gets you in that zone that you can perform. And so, yeah, maybe that's hard for people to really like understand me because of that, but that's just the nature of how I do it.
We're going to take our last question. Go ahead.
Rudy, from the outside, it seems like your transition from the truck series to the Cup was seamless, but it seems like it's been pretty, you look at the results and they've been there. Was it as seamless as it looks from the outside?
There's been plenty of tough moments. Yeah, it's different types of communication and really strong teammates. That have a lot of help to bring. And how do you communicate and how do you get the most out of your team when they have as much experience as a lot of these guys have. And so yeah, just there's been difficult moments for sure. Especially first couple of years, but and still even today, shoot, every week there's always a moment that's like, damn, this is just so hard, right? So yeah, it's probably way harder than it looks on the outside.